Thank you, everyone, and I appreciate the invitation to come and talk to you about your private wells, if you happen to have a well at your home. And so what I thought I would do is just kind of start out with checking things out beforehand, kind of making sure you're just set up for a normal situation. So the thing about a private well is great because there's, you have a lot of control over your water source, but the danger with any kind of well is that it is a direct conduit, or can be, to your drinking water. So the more things you can do to try to prevent anything from getting in that well casing, the better. So in a normal situation, if you have a well, is to have the casing itself about 18 inches above ground and have a sanitary cap on the top. So the newer regulations ask for a cap that doesn't have any openings on the top, that everything's facing downwards. And so that's something to check out and hopefully get updated if you don't happen to have one of those. Some of the older styles actually have pipes coming up out of the top, or they are split in the middle, and there was a seal in the middle, but that seal can go bad over time. So if you can get it replaced, and then all of those openings are down facing, and just less likely to get let things down into your well itself. The other thing is, if you can check, there should be a vent underneath that well cap that you want to not have plugged with anything. Bugs and critters like to get up inside of those, and your pump can't work properly because you can't get airflow with that. And if, of course, that screen is not there properly, then those things can actually get down inside of your well. And then the other thing is, if you can have the soil mounded around the base of that well casing, then even just in normal rain events, that the water won't pool and possibly seep down along that casing. Lastly, if it's within your power, any kind of source of contaminant, piles of leaves and other things that could attract other things and possibly allow stuff to kind of dribble down to the well, you want to make sure that that's not uphill from the well itself. But if you suspect, maybe you were home, if you suspect there was possibly a flood around, or people tell you, one of the first things that we recommend is that you just go out and do a visual inspection of the wellhead itself, because like we've heard, that water can be carrying a lot of things that can move quite quickly and have a lot of debris inside of it, and so it can cause a lot of damage. So just check any of the conduit to make sure it's not broken around the wiring itself, make sure there's no holes in the casing itself, or if, unfortunately, the bottom picture looks a lot like my wellhead. It's really close to the ground, not the broken part, but it's very close to the ground, and that well cap itself can be damaged and it's a direct conduit down to your water. So just make sure that you check that stuff out first. And so we, of course, certainly recommend, if you even suspect there's been a flood, don't use the water for drinking, bathing, brushing, or cooking. Do not turn the pump back on. Or if you have access to it, make sure to turn it off, safely. And so then you can look for the signs. And after that, we certainly, while you're trying to get things settled, make sure you use your bottled water for washing and drinking and cooking. And you can also disinfect it on your own by bringing it to a rolling boil and boiling it for a full minute. And if you rather, you can disinfect with iodine or chlorine tablets, but just to make sure, this is in no way an endorsement of these particular products, but there are just a couple that are out there. But just make sure, A, that you follow the instructions very carefully, because the timing of it is important, but also that they're not out of date, because they do spoil over time, and they're not as effective. Okay. When it comes to disinfecting the well, you certainly have a couple options. You can hire a water well contractor, or you can disinfect it yourself. You can go to our county department website and look for instructions on how to do that, or you can certainly contact us and we can walk you through that process. But again, you certainly don't want to be using that water for any kind of consumption purposes until you've had the chance to shock disinfect it. And then you're going to wait until the water runs clear of chlorine, and then you want to do a follow-up test for bacteria. And there are a couple local institutions that can do that. The Community Science Institute and then Microbac are the two closest ones, and they do it in a couple different ways. I know the Community Science Institute will have drop-off points that you can pick up testing kits with instructions. The Microbac you call, and you can pick things up from them. But there are other institutions out there if you wish. So if you do have any other questions, of course, there's a lot of information on the State Department of Health website or our own, and as always, you can call us for any questions or help walking you through this situation. So, thank you very much, appreciate it.